Welcome back to the Jewish Roots Life Group. And in this one we're going to be talking about Father Abraham. And when you say Father Abraham, you think of father of faith. But there's another word closely associated with it, trust. So we're going to see trust and faith. And is there a difference between trust and faith? And what does the example of Abraham reveal between these two words? All right, first we're going to back up a little bit and catch up, put a little bit of backstory before we get to those two words. And in the last session, we were at the point where Abram, I should say, was in the land of Chaldea, right here. That's actually where he was from, and we were talking about how he was really not a Jew, he was Chaldean, because that's where he was born and raised. Then he went on a journey with his father and his family to Haran, right here, where the big red arrows pointing. And then from there, he had his calling from God, said, leave, Lech Lecha, go forth and leave. And this is the journey that he took into Canaan, the promised land. So, I want to point out first that that command that he got from God, that Lech Lecha, go forth and leave, is more of what we would say a very urgent, a very do it now, an emergency. You know, like someone, like a hurricane was coming, or an earthquake, or whatever. That you got to leave now. There's a sense of urgency. So when you see this term in Hebrew, it's translated "go forth," but it's supposed to have with it a really big sense of urgency and now, and do it now. All right. Then while we saw that in the last episode that when Abram got his name changed by God from Abram to Abraham, that the difference was the letter He, which signifies grace. So now grace was being imparted to his name. He didn't have it at first, but now this is being added to it. All right, so here is the command and the covenant in Genesis chapter 11, and we see it, and starting at verse 27 here, it says, this is the account of Terah's family. Terah was the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Haran was the father of Lot. But Haran died in Ur, the city of Ur, U-R, of the Chaldeans, the land of his birth, while his father Terah was living. Meanwhile, Abram and Nahor both married. The name of Abram's wife was Sarah, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. Milcah, her sister, Iscah, were daughters of Nahor's brother Haran. But Sarah was unable to become pregnant and had no children. One day, Terah took his son Abram, this is in verse 31, his daughter-in-law Sarah, Abram's wife, his grandson Lot, his son Haran's child, and moved away from Ur, the land of the Chaldeans. He was headed for the land of Canaan. But they stopped at Haran and settled there. Terah lived 205 years and died while in Haran. So here we see that the father of Abraham, Terah, left the Chaldeans, or the city of Ur, the Chaldeans, and went to Haran. And it really doesn't say why. The last class, the one before this, when we talked about Abraham, we talked about, remember, the Tower of Babel. So maybe it's a possibility, who knows, that the Tower of Babel happened and now everybody has a mixed language, and so they don't know anybody anymore who speaks their language, so let's go to a different place, and maybe in that place there'll be somebody that speaks their language. Who knows? It doesn't say, but it does say that he picked up and moved to the land of Haran. Now, if you're observant, you will notice that Haran is mentioned twice. You have the person, Haran, and you have the place of Haran. Are they the same or are they different? And that's what we're going to be taking a look at. And let's first take a look at the spelling. Here it is in Hebrew. All right, this is the person's name and this is the place. And the difference is, once again, the letter He. Just like in Abraham's name, the difference was the letter He. Because here you can see He, and here is Het. And that sound is like you're clearing your throat, like you hear all the Middle Easterns talk. It's a He sound, where this one's a soft H, He. So the difference literally would be Haran and Haran. It's almost spelled the same, but the first one has the letter He, the other one has the letter He. So the letter He, the letter He is associated with the numerical value of 5. It means look up, behold, receive revelation and grace. And we've seen that in the previous episode. And for a meaning of the name of Haran, they pretty much translated it mountaineer or mountainous. It's in Bible's names. And so that's what Haran is translated as, is mountainous or mountains. And the city, Het, right here, is translated as a secluded garden or sanctuary for the creation of eternity. So let's say that everything is in a name, right? Well, why would you not want to move from the land of the Chaldeans to a secluded garden sanctuary for the creation of eternity? Hey, sounds good to me, let's go. And that's why a lot of people move, is to go to a better place. And that's what the name says. Now here's the calling of Abram. Here, while he was in that land of Haran, the Lord said to Abram, leave. And there's that word leave that I told you about that has a sense of urgency. Your native country, your relatives, and your father's family. We'll get to that in just a minute. And go to the land I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you and make you famous. And you will be a blessing to others. And here's the verse that I love. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who treat you with contempt. Or a lot of versions say who curse you. All the families on earth will be blessed through you. And we can see this happening today. Bless Israel, you get blessed. Curse Israel, you get a curse. So anyways, let's go back to this one right here. In the first verse, leave your country, your relatives, and your father's family. Why is that so important? Because back then, the father's family meant everything. It meant your inheritance. If you're a firstborn, that means you get everything your father passes down to you, an inheritance. And so he would be leaving his country, all his relatives, his inheritance, everything, to go to a land that I will show you. Verse 4, Abram departed as the Lord instructed, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he left Haran. He took his wife Sarah, his nephew Lot, all his wealth, his livestock, and the people he had taken into his household, and headed for the land of Canaan. When they arrived in Canaan, Abram traveled through the land as far as Shechem, and there he set up camp by the oak of Moreh, and at that time the area was inhabited by Canaanites. And we'll stop right there and go into this. So when he left, he did do exactly as God told him to do. He left and headed were, I guess, in the direction that God wanted him to go. But it says he took a little bit of his family with him, his wife Sarah, his nephew Lot, a little bit of his wealth, livestock, and people in his household. So he did take some people with him. Now it is a theory, I'm going to stop here, it is a theory that maybe, just maybe, remember how I said they wanted to go to a place, remember the Tower of Babel, and the Tower of Babel came and they confused the languages? Maybe they want to go a place where they speak the same language. That's what I said before. If they spoke Hebrew, then why not seek other people that speak Hebrew? And maybe this was God's plan, was to keep the Hebrew language and custom alive through Abram. And he's telling them to go into this land to establish it, so it will be Hebrew, which is going to be, in a little while, Israel, the nation and God's chosen people. But anyways, just maybe. So he went to Shechem, and the Lord appeared to Abram and said, I will give all this land to your descendants. And Abram built an altar there and dedicated to the Lord who appeared to him. After that, Abram traveled south and set up camp in the hill with Bethel to the west and Ai to the east. There he built another altar and dedicated to the Lord and worshipped him. Then Abram continued traveling south toward the Negev desert. It doesn't say desert, but I know the Negev is the desert because I've been there. So anyways, he continued south toward more or less Egypt. And here it says every time that God instructed him to do something, he built an altar and dedicated to God. Now here is the trust. Remember, the very first part of this is trust or faith. Now he trusted God, right? And this is trust. And we're going to move into the faith aspect of it in just a little bit. But I just wanted to give you this story and let you know what was going on. So here is Abraham's journey, as we saw. They left the land of the Chaldeans. Here's Haran coming down. Here's Shechem, Bethel, Ai, Jerusalem, going down. He'll later set up a lot of things in Hebron. This is actually where they're buried today. And go to Beersheba all the way over to Egypt. And here's the Negev desert down here in the south. So that's just a map to show you the journey, the route of which he was headed, which he was taken, and the promised land. So he was here, and God said, look, I'm going to show you all this land that's going to be your descendants. So he went from Haran to Shechem to Bethel and Ai, and then to Hebron. And this is what Shechem looks like today. This was from 2019 when I was there and took a picture from this overlook. And this is what Abram would have been seeing when God was saying, hey, look, this is the land of your descendants. This is what I'm going to give you. He probably would have been standing somewhere in this area looking at the same site here. And here you can see some rocks with Hebrew writings carved into them right there. All right, now let's get into trust and faith. What is the difference, or is there a difference? All right, trust. Here's the definition of it: firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, or strength of someone or something. That's trust. Faith is a complete trust or confidence in someone or something. So there is a difference, because this one is a completeness of that one. It says complete trust or confidence in someone or something. This one is a firm belief. This is complete trust. So there is a difference. And you will see in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8, for by grace you have been saved through faith, not of your own doing, but it's a gift from God so that no one can boast. So our gift of grace says, for grace you've been saved through faith. It doesn't say through trust, it says through faith. And we're going to get into that a little bit more here in a minute. So strong belief in God and the doctrines of religion based on spiritual apprehension rather than proof. Spiritual apprehension. We're going to get into that in just a minute. So here's the difference in Hebrew. This is trust in Hebrew, and this is faith in Hebrew. And I will go over the differences between them. Trust has the letters Aleph, Mem, Vav, Nun. You add all those up and it comes up to 97, the numerical value of 97. What other words has the numerical value of 97 in Hebrew? Serve, Levite, Elohim, and understand. All right, now let's go over here to the other side, faith. Here you have the Aleph, Mem, Vav, Nun, and He. Or not really the He, it's the He, the soft He. Notice that the difference. This one has 4 letters. This one has 5. And the difference is the letter He. The letter He. Remember the He was a difference between Abram and Abraham. Alright, faith has a numerical value of 102. And these words also have the numerical value of 102. Believe, servant, strength, and mercy. Mercy and grace. Perfect gifts, free gifts that requires faith. They're not on the trust side, they're on the faith side. So can you see the difference? All right, the mystery of the letter He. The mystery of the letter He. All right, since the numerical value is 5, it corresponds on a physical level to the 5 fingers, 5 senses, 5 dimensions. On a spiritual level, it corresponds to 5 levels of the soul. Instincts, emotions, minds, bridge, transcendence, and oneness. And that's according to Hebrew rabbinical traditions. All right, He represents God's creative power. By the word of the Lord, the heavens were made. By His mouth, everything was spoken into existence. All right, so remember the letter He here, and it has the number 5 associated with it. Obviously, you have the 5 senses. We're in the 5 books of the Torah. We've gone through all those. But I wanted you to see that difference between 4, the number 4, and the number 5. This is more spiritual meanings. So what it's trying to say is we have to move from trust, which is the number 4, to faith, the number 5. In the Bible, number 4 means creation. This number directly relates to the creative ability of God, the physical. All right, things were created, a physical earth, a physical water, physical people, physical animals. That's what number 4 represents. Now the number 5 is mentioned in the Bible a total of 318 times. This number is directly linked to God's grace, mercy, and favor. Now these are not tangible things. You can't experience them with your 5 senses. These are spiritual things. So here you go from the physical to the spiritual. All right, now let's look at Ephesians 2:8. For by grace you've been saved through faith. All right, you're moving from the physical to the spiritual. When you go into faith, you're moving from something physical to something spiritual. So now something spiritual, mercy and grace, can be received. Moving from 4 to 5, moving from the physical to the spiritual. All right, once again, here's the difference between trust and faith. Do you trust God, or do you have faith in God. Remember how I said Abraham was a father of faith when he offered his son Isaac? All right, he did more than trust God. He had faith in God. He moved from the physical to the spiritual. He believed, he was a servant, he had strength, and guess what? When you move from the physical to the spiritual, you receive spiritual. You receive mercy, grace, blessing, all the spiritual things that God wants to give us. So I'm urging you, do you trust in God or do you believe in God? I want you to go from the trust into complete trust, which is called faith. And once you move over into faith, then you can move mountains. Then you will see healings. You will see miracles. Why? Because you've moved into the spiritual realm and you have opened up God's mercy, God's strength, and everything that God has in store for us. All right, so trust, a firm belief. Faith, a complete trust. So you have to move from here to here. All right, that concludes this episode, and like I said, this is kind of a learning thing that I wanted to show you that this is a really, really tough, you're going to have to do a lot of soul searching. This is a tough question to ask. Do you trust God? Do you really have faith in God? And you say, yeah, I have faith in God, but do you have faith in God? Is it a complete trust and confidence to the point where you can receive spiritual grace and blessings? If not, it's over here. It's just a trust. That's why he was called the father of faith, because he had complete trust and confidence. That's why he was blessed. Yes, he started out here and moved into here, which is exactly the whole point of this whole lesson, is to move from 4 to 5, from physical to spiritual. And that is the example from Father Abraham.